All right, so our goal today is just to understand the differences between similes and metaphors super quickly, and then we're going to move forward and look at a couple of examples from the Hope Chest and talk about if they're similes or metaphors and why. So, you may know what a simile and metaphor is, and I know we've talked about it before in school. Not a whole lot this year, but you've probably talked about it in previous years too. So the biggest thing is that similes and metaphors are similar because they're both like comparing something to something else. Okay? So a simile compares one thing to something very different. So for example, they don't have to be super, but as cold as ice. So it's comparing that you're cold as ice. Okay? So it's very vivid, right? So if someone says, I'm cold, you might not know how cold, but if they add in, I'm cold as ice, you know how cold ice is, so that you can make that, it's a more of a vivid connection in your brain that you know, ooh, they must be very cold. So the biggest thing with a simile is it has either this phrase, so as cold as ice, so it uses the word as, or like, so cold like ice. Okay, if it's a simile, you would see either the word as, blank as, or the word like. Okay, a metaphor is when you're describing something with words that aren't connected to it either. So using another word, but there's not using the words as or like. So for example, her voice was music to his ears. Music to his ears. Her voice was music to his ears. Okay? Which means her voice sounded really good to him and made it feel good. And you know it because music to his ears, you know that you enjoy music in your ears, right? And so if her voice was music, then her voice must have been good. Okay? So it's comparing her voice to music, and this one's comparing cold to ice. Similes use as or like. Metaphors, they don't. They just say it as it is. Okay, so now what we're going to do is if you have your book, you can turn to page 93. On page 93, at about where is it? Oh, yeah, 93, the second paragraph. That's what we're in right now. And I will pull it up here as well. So, on page 93, second paragraph, it says, Myrtle looked around for an empty seat. The car was very full. She saw space next to the old woman, remarkably old. The woman looked almost too old to be human. She looked more like a very ancient tree that Myrtle knew of that grew in Anacostia, Washington. The woman was wearing the full, long skirts that had gone out of fashion before Myrtle was born. So we're going to focus right here on she looked more like a very ancient tree. She looked more like a very ancient tree. Looked like an ancient tree. So this sentence right here, or this phrase, looked more like a very ancient tree. It's comparing the lady to an ancient tree, right? Is it using the word like or not? So if it is using the word like that we see right here, we know that this phrase is a simile. Looked more like a very ancient tree. Okay? And so this phrase means that she looked very old and her skin looked very old, right? So this helps you as a reader because it really emphasizes how old she looks. If she just said she looked old, you're like, okay. But old like an ancient tree. You can picture an ancient tree, and you can picture then maybe her skin is very wrinkly, like old trees, the bark. Lots of ways your mind can go there. Okay? Does that make sense? So that is a simile because it's comparing her to old. Or to an old tree, ancient tree, using the word like. Okay, so now we're going to look at another example. So if you can turn to page 96. And on page 96, it is about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraph down, where it starts with "You don't know much, child." If you don't want to look in the book, you can look on the screen. So, "You don't know much, child. I've been telling you how I was sold and willed and bartered about like so much livestock, and you've got it in your head that white folks are going to let me vote." So, we're looking for a phrase in here that is either a simile or a metaphor. So I want to point out this one right here, this sentence. I've just been telling you how I was sold and willed and bartered about like so much livestock. That's what we're focusing on. So if you look at that sentence there, I want you to think, would that be a simile or a metaphor? This part right here. I was sold and willed and bartered about like so much livestock. She's comparing herself to livestock. Is this a simile? Does it use the word as and like? Or is this a metaphor? All right, good. So hopefully you found this clue word here. Like. Wow, that was beautiful. And so if you found that word like, you know that it is a simile. She's comparing herself being sold, how she was being sold like livestock. Okay, because livestock are farm animals and farm animals are sold. So she's kind of comparing slavery to how people sell and buy animals. Okay. So that's all we're going to do right now. The next time we'll come together, we will look at another example and think if it's a simile or metaphor. And yeah, so thanks for finding 2 similes today. I was just been telling you how I was sold and willed and battered about like so much livestock, and she looked more like a very ancient tree. All right, thank you.